Hello, this is Pater Edmund Waldstein here in Stift Heiligenkreuz. I'm on the north side of the Abbey church. You see the graveyard, which is to the north of the Abbey church, the church tower. The monastery itself is, of course, to the south of the church, in the lee of the church, as it were. And under the church tower on the north side, there's a modern chapel. This chapel was built in the 1980s on the foundations of a medieval chapel by Abbot Franz Gaumann Müller of Heiligenkreuz as a place for the parish of Heiligenkreuz to have its liturgies rather than in the Abbey church. And in the 1980s, Abbot Gerhard Radil, the successor of Abt Franz, he built a reliquary for our relic of the True Cross in this church. You can see a picture of the old reliquary there. It was built in a modern style, not very beautiful. Now the church has just been remodeled with a new reliquary for the True Cross with new paintings by the young Austrian artist Clemens Fuchs, which I want to show you. They're going to be blessed tomorrow, the new painting, so it's not quite finished. The Blessed Sacrament hasn't been put back in the Tabernacle yet, or the new Tabernacle hasn't been blessed yet. So we'll look in, though, to the church as it looks today, the day before it reopens. It's technically still closed. Kreuzkirche wegen Umbau gesperrt, Zutritt verboten. Meaning you're not allowed to go in, but we're going to anyways. So now we are in the Kreuzkirche. It has a flat ceiling, unfortunately. I would have made an arch ceiling, but it was too expensive, I think. The windows in the back are from were originally put in there in the 1980s. It's actually one older window that was in storage that was divided up. I think the window is from the 1960s or 1950s originally. Sees the life of St. Bernard. The organ was also already in the Kreuzkirche before this remodeling, but it's been redecorated for the new remodeling and moved here to the back. It used to be up in the front. Something similar is true of the pews. They used to be dark brown, but they've been painted this light color and decorated with gilding for the new Kreuzkirche. And there are also two new confessionals that have been put in. There used to be just one confessional here, and now there are two. But the main thing, of course, is the sanctuary and the paintings on the walls and in the sanctuary. Let's begin right at the front. We have here the altar and the ambo. The altar was already put in here in the 1980s. It's an old altar, but it was decorated with gilding, and the ambo was made to fit it. And here we have now a new high altar, as it were, with a gradine behind it holding antique candlesticks, which were purchased for the occasion. And here is the new tabernacle made by Clemens Fuchs. He modeled it out of clay, and then it was cast in bronze and then gilt by our gilder here in Heiligenkreuz. And he modeled the pelican on the doors of the tabernacle. Pie pelicane, Jesu Domine, me mundo mundo tuo sanguine, as St. Thomas Aquinas says. And inside the tabernacle, it's actually a Baroque style construction with a rotating interior with two sides. On one side you will have the Ciboria holding the Blessed Sacrament, and on the other side there's room for a monstrance. So if you turn the table around, as it were, then the Blessed Sacrament will be able to be exposed like that in that alcove, a typical Baroque construction. Close the doors. Now, above the tabernacle, Clemens painted this huge painting. It's oil on wood panel, the painting. And right above the tabernacle, you see an empty alcove. That is where the relic of the true cross is going to be kept, as it was before, above the tabernacle. And there's going to be a light inside there. So instead of a black alcove, it will be brightly lit with a red curtain behind the relic of the true cross. And here you see the painting around it. At the top is the Blessed Trinity, a so-called mercy seat. That is the God the Father holding God the Son, whose hands are outstretched as on the cross, offering him for the life of the world, and with the Holy Spirit above them. And then on the one side, you have, as it were, the priestly church. You have St. John the Evangelist pointing to Christ. And then below St. John the Evangelist, the lighting is actually reflecting a bit on the painting. Maybe they have to adjust the lighting. You see Blessed János Brenna, who is a Hungarian saint who was murdered by the communists in the 1950s. He had been a Cistercian novice and always considered himself to be a Cistercian, although he wasn't allowed to publicly take solemn vows. But that's why he's depicted here as a Cistercian in a Cistercian cowl. And then on the other side, you have at the top Our Lady, and below Our Lady, Blessed Maria Gabriela Saghedu, a Trappist saint of the 20th century, who offered her many sufferings up for the unity of the church. And therefore, below her you have the encyclical Ut Unum Sint of Pope St. John Paul II, in which she is also mentioned. You have then, over here, a statue of the Sacred Heart. This was already in the Kreuzkirche before. It was originally in the Abbey Church. It was put up during World War II. When the abbot consecrated the monastery to the Sacred Heart, begging the Sacred Heart of Jesus to spare the monastery from being closed down by the Nazis. And the prayer was actually heard. The Nazis were planning on closing down the monastery, but they never did. But later, that statue was moved here into the Kreuzkirche, and it's been re-erected. Then here on the left, you have a depiction of Saint Benedict of Nursia, according to whose rule we live in the monastery. It's his death. St. Gregory the Great tells us that when St. Benedict was dying, he asked to be propped up by his brothers who wanted to die standing as he offered his soul to God. And he's depicted here receiving viaticum. Below him is, of course, the poisoned cup with the snake coming out of it, which is one of his attributes, because as a young abbot, the monks tried to poison him, but when he blessed the cup, it shattered. Then over here you have the Holy Family, St. Joseph, Our Lady, and Jesus. And then over here is St. Leopold of Austria, the founder of Heiligenkreuz, with Heiligenkreuz below him. He donated the lands for Heiligenkreuz. And his son, Blessed Otto Freising, is right on the other side. Otto Freising was the abbot of Morimont in France, one of the first Cistercian abbeys, and he sent 13 monks from Morimont to Austria to found Heiligenkreuz. He persuaded his father, St. Leopold, to donate the lands. Later he became Bishop of Freising in Bavaria. And then on the right, you have a statue of Our Lady. This is also a statue that was already here in the Kreuzkirche before the renovation, and it's been restored and put back in its place. And then over here you have a depiction of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, the greatest saint of the Cistercian order, and it's depicting the scene of the so-called amplexus. He was praying in front of a crucifix, Saint Bernard was, and Christ reached down from the crucifix to embrace him, which is what's shown here. And the instruments of the Passion are being held around him, the lance, the sponge, and so on. So there you have it, the new Kreuzkirche in its new glory. Tomorrow, Sunday after the exaltation of the cross, when we celebrate the exaltation of the cross for a second time in Heiligenkreuz, it will be blessed. And may God bless you.